A civic movement grounded in the Constitution. Patriotism explained. Not right, not left, but straight ahead.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Patriot Party, where truth, transparency, and constitutional principles come before politics. The Patriot Party movement is focused on re-empowering we the people, restoring accountability, and putting America first through honest conversations and real solutions. America first, not America only, because we lead by example.
Today, we're joined by Adam Swart, founder of Crowds on Demand and someone with over a decade of experience inside the world of organized demonstrations and public mobilization. Adam has appeared across major media discussing how modern protests are funded, coordinated, and increasingly shaped by messaging, incentives, and media dynamics. Today, we're talking about transparency, authenticity, public trust, and understanding the systems behind what people see. Adam, for people hearing your name for the first time, how did you get into this world?
Yeah, Matt, thanks for having me. Great to be with you. I got into this world because I was involved in politics in college. I worked as a journalist. At that time, I've now run my business, which is called Crowds on Demand, for about 15 years now, just under. And we specialize, we're the largest protest company in the country. We specialize in advocacy campaigns, protests, PR stunts, any kind of publicity that people are looking to do. Right now, how did I get into this is I was in a world where the political world was changing. The people running the campaigns when I was in college came of age in the 1960s when activism was in people's DNA. You could get 5,000 students on the quad in an hour with some posters and some pizza, right? The dynamic of activism changed. Because the reality is that in a world that had increasingly more forms of entertainment and maybe less political engagement, that was harder. So it's like, how do you get people out there to these events? That's how it started. And I kind of thought, well, what if I connected two groups, right? The people who need those folks, and then I went to school at UCLA, so what is in LA is a lot of actors, right? So that actors are the original gig workers. Before the term gig economy, actors already knew about the gig economy, right? Because actors would always be doing kind of side hustles. So I kind of thought, what if I connect those two? Now, what's interesting is that's, almost 15 years ago, and I still get bad press about this today because it's like, oh, well, he hires actors to show up and masquerade as protesters. Well, that's not strictly true anymore. Yes, this is how we launched, and I don't apologize for it, but our model now today in 2026 is much more focused on we get people who are enthusiastic about the cause, but we just sometimes people need an incentive to show up, and we kind of compensate them, and we have a network, and we also, in addition, our service, we're not just providing bodies, we're also providing strategy, organization, support, all of those things around kind of a demonstration or even a series with an advocacy campaign.
Okay, so actually, I'm going off script with this. I told you before I had an interview, but you're diving into something where I feel like I could add something into what we're doing. So, yeah. How familiar are you with what we're doing, the trilogy of what's moving in the same, these three entities with the same goal of truth, transparency, and the Constitution that are moving simultaneously in tandem? How familiar are you with the movement?
Well, why don't you tell me so that I don't sound like an idiot?
You're not going to be an idiot, but I had a lawyer on here one time, and I asked him something. He didn't know a thing about it, and he started voicing in, it sounds naive, and da-da-da. I'm like, really? You don't? But thank you. I'm not going to go into the whole movement because there's all sorts of things going on. There's a nonprofit, the American Institute for Civic Leadership, that's for middle and high school, being piloted right now. We're on the Patriot Party, which is the conversation part. This is the conversation. This is the solution-based part. We come on and we talk about solutions. But the parent company, Civic Truth Media Group, we make AI-assisted civic technology to re-empower the people. So what stands out to me is you're saying, okay, well, initially we had people that, and I was going to go into this later. I'm going to put this out. We're going off the cuff here. So I was going to go into it later where there's been a lot of publicity. Now, I kind of take the media with a grain of salt because most of the time you're just getting little clips and you're not getting the full narrative, like the full story. But there are a lot of stories about things like this where they say people don't know what they're doing. They're just put there. They don't know what they're doing. And then you're saying, well, that may have happened in the beginning, but this is where we're going now. Well, what I would recommend is some sort. We develop modular AI-assisted civic software, and I don't have time to develop anything for you guys. But what I would recommend is AI is so good at taking data points. Like literally, they are breaking down the electoral map to a couple of votes with AI. So you could use it to link who is passionate about what and link all the data points. So literally, you're pointing everybody in the direction in which they're most passionate about. So you don't have to do a manual.
There's a lot of opportunities with technology, and we will certainly see what we're going to do with that. I do think in regards to, I've always tried never to be the guy that just put people in place and just sort of saw what happened. Now, part of it is having passionate people who are articulate is something that costs more money. So,
well, I want to stop you right there real quick because I do want to clarify because we teach responsible technology. So we're not trying to automate. Our flow looks humans create, AI enhances, humans decide. We're not trying to automate anything.
See, this is exactly, by the way, Matt, this is exactly what I think AI should be. Is AI should be a tool that is
an enhancer.
Right. So if I say, find me all the Republican congressmen who voted yes on Epstein transparency, I would want them to tell me who did that. Right?
You could get a list of it because what we're doing right now,
and I could get it in 2 seconds.
So our software we're developing, we have a federal policy producer that we're scaling right now as an education tool, plus to get people more engaged in society, where you can take a data point, you can take a problem, or you can take an idea, and it spits out Washington formatted and ready legislation built on data, not donors, and it looks at everything that's failed in the past, and it designs something to like hopefully survive the Supreme Court and challenges and stuff. So we have 10 proof of concepts on our page. Now they're my ideas. We say, what's yours? I'm not claiming to have solutions. We're just building the pot, the people's pot, and the Americans will decide what to sprinkle in. Where I'm not trying, but my proof of concepts are we've run it through the stress test: how to save the American people $2 trillion to fix Obamacare, how to fix gun violence without violating the Second Amendment, first in history. Student loans, we have a whole proof of concept page on the Patriot Party with all the legislation that you can see. And then when it was submitted to Congress, when we submitted it to Congress, when we went to Washington and hand submitted some of it, and we've got it all documented, million views on social media watching us, going through D.C. and giving it to the Louisiana legislators and letting them know, hey, this is what's going on in your state. We just want to let you know before we nationally scale. So, that's what but anyway, what we're also doing is we're using our software to scan complex legislation and see what's worked, what hasn't worked, create clarity portals to help with affordability and transparency. And so municipalities, we're doing parishes to help with affordability and transparency, so the constituents know it's in real language. They know what's going on. They know what they're voting on. There's not all this hidden stuff. All this stuff's available, but you have to have a 10-year degree to know how to read it. Well, we're leveling the playing field. If you work a blue-collar job, you need to be able to be involved.
I like it. I think that a lot of people, and the less intelligent you are, and this doesn't have anything to do with white and blue collar, because there are a lot of idiot white collar people and a lot of very smart blue collar. But the less intelligent you are, the more you can get driven by AI. Like the questions that people ask on Twitter, like, Grok, what should I think about this? That's a dumb person question. Grok should not tell you what
I have to stop you. I have to stop you because I've had to do this before. I'm not going to call my audience dumb. I will call them uninformed. They have not been taught how to responsibly use technology. And that's why we have to start in middle school and so we teach it for the next generation.
Just to be clear, I didn't say millennials were dumb. I said people who ask.
I'm saying anybody. I'm not going to call anybody because me personally, because I feel like they're just uninformed. I don't feel like they know how to use the technology correctly.
For example,
nobody knows to tell the AI to save it in their permanent canonical data points and set these guardrails. And that's information that we're going to make available to the American public. Like literally, we wrote a 40-page grant that's been accepted into the finals, and if it gets accepted by Google, then we actually had a grant writer that helped train our AI. We're going to give that code to the American people. Hey, train your AI to write grants. We're not trying to charge for this technology. We are putting people over profit.
Sounds good.
All right, back to your thing. I'm sorry, I got on my thing.
What's up?
No, I'm saying back to what you were saying about
well, okay. Can I finish my thought?
Yeah.
Let me just finish my thought, and I respect your thoughts as well. Now, in regards to AI, my one feeling is that I think a lot of people, you should not be asking AI for analysis. I think that's a big mistake. You should be asking AI for very clear fact, and then you should double check it. So I do think AI is a great tool because, frankly, AI has more knowledge than any of us. But AI is like an autistic person, right? So, well, I shouldn't say that even, but AI is like someone who may have a lot of knowledge, but doesn't necessarily have the analysis that is at a mature level. So what we need as critical thinkers is we need to ask AI the right questions to help give us the knowledge. But as you said, humans should be the ones deciding. And I think the challenge is people ask, so I use the example of how many congressmen voted for the Epstein transparency, right? And which ones from which districts and which parties, right? Well, that's a fact-based question. But let's just say I said, which congressmen are the toughest on Epstein? Well, that's a very subjective question, right? Because what does that mean, right? And now I'm letting a computer decide what that means.
Only if you have not created guardrails in your AI. You can literally create guardrails and it will push back against everything. See, I always say AI, we have a graphic on our social media. I say AI is like a child that doesn't know how to do anything, but knows everything. And you have to teach it. And the better parent you are, the better your AI is going to be. So you have to teach it. You can literally put those guardrails in, and then when you ask it something, it will push back if it's not going to be able to give you the truth, or if it's not going to be able to give you the most fact-based thing. And it'll outlay everything, so then you can make your own decision.
Well, yeah, you have to have good guardrails. Yeah, you have to have good guardrails. I think everybody kind of agrees on that. And the question is, who is actually going to do that? Because when you put guardrails, it's the same challenge that social media has, is the more guardrails that you have, then the more users might not be happy. Because ultimately, the problem is that AI exists. The reason why AI is so subservient and enables us, right? Like there's been plenty of documented cases where AI has pushed people to even, do horrible things to other people or to themselves, is because of that lack of guardrails. But if AI had pushed back on those people, maybe those people would have left the app, right? And these apps are designed to be addictive.
But the trick is not to tell people what to think. It's to show people how to critically think. So the AI
are we disagreeing or are we agreeing? I can't tell.
No, I think we're agreeing. We're agreeing, but there's a way to do what you're saying with AI that everybody has on their phone. And I'm just trying to help people do what you're saying the AI is lacking. Because you're saying it's lacking something, and I'm saying, hey, it doesn't have to lack that. You can literally have it pull up the most trusted of both sides of the argument, so you make the decision on what you decide. That's how that when we say humans decide, that's the decision. We want to give you the decision, like all the options, and you decide what you agree with and what resonates best with you. That way, we're not telling you arbitrarily this is this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we agree. I don't know, but anyway, let's move on.
I
feel like we're both very opinionated, so we agree in a sort of disagreeable way. So let's just say,
as long as we can agree to disagree, that's what we're trying to introduce civil discourse back into society.
That part, I think that's my biggest point of agreement with you, is I do feel that there are so more and more points of contention between people in this country that are like, if you don't agree with me, then I assume you're operating in bad faith.
But don't you think part of that, and this is what we're, as soon as we finish with this software, we already own the technology, we're doing a fast streaming news channel called Truth Matters News. That'll be on Samsung, Roku, and simulcast on social media. There'll be fact-based, nonpartisan, independently verified, no rumor mill. Now, we may debate living versus originalist constitution, and we may have constitutional lawyers debating that, but everything will be through a truth-based, fact-based constitutional lens. Because don't you think the media, like the way that they zoom in on something, and they make it like every one of your neighbors is this way, but literally it may only be like 2 in America, like it happened that way. Like it's almost like and I believe that goes to the even deeper issue, which is in the incentives part of like everything with social media, Google, and everything, because you're rewarded for emotional clickbait. That's what you're rewarded for. You're not rewarded for substance, you're rewarded for clickbait. So we have literally monetized that method into society.
I agree with that. I agree.
Cool. So I think where we broke off into this and that is I was recommending like maybe that you guys could build in some AI to not to tell people where they have to go, but to show them maybe what they line up with the most, and then have a score so people can line themselves up with their own protest. You're never going to tell somebody that. I mean, that's one of, I think that's one of the big issues with a lot of these legacy companies is there's so much black box stuff going on behind the scenes, and nobody knows how the algorithms work or why this was violated or this or that. Nobody knows, and even the people that work there don't know because everything is compartmentalized and nobody talks to anybody.
There you go.
All right, let's see. Do you think, so you mentioned about something changing in, the way protests were done back in the day versus the way they are now. Back in the day, you could send them.
Well, I think one major difference is that the competition for entertainment and things to do is, we got these phones, we got iPads, we got everything, and there's more and more entertainment now. So that's one thing, is that I think to some degree, and it's not to cheapen the activists of the 60s, but to some degree, I think it's boredom, and it you have nothing else to do, so you get involved. I think to some degree, the issues of that time were felt existential, right? Now, that's not to say that the issues of our time aren't important. But every politician likes to say this is the most important time of our lives, right? There's no politician that's ever said this time isn't actually that important, right? This election, if you're going to sit one out, this is the election, right?
No.
Have you ever heard a politician ever say that? They've never say that. They never will. They'll always say this is the most important election.
So our time.
Yeah, but in the 60s, if you think about the 1960s, what were we talking about? We were talking about civil rights. We were talking about literally a group of people being discriminated against due to the color of their skin, which is sort of like a part of the original sin, so to speak, right? So you had like a level of oppression that was something that was very hard to ignore, right? Number one. Number two, you had your friends, maybe yourself, being sent off to sort of a pointless war in Southeast Asia, right? The Vietnam War. So you literally had two threats that, even if, certainly if you were African American, but even if you weren't and seeing the abuses of the Jim Crow era, that was stark. And then Vietnam War was an existential threat to any college student because they faced the threat of being drafted to fight in a war, and they certainly, even if they weren't drafted, their friends were, and their family members were. So I think that when we talk about some of the things, the issues of today, are they important? Yes. But one of the things that it's interesting is that there aren't so many direct ramifications on people today of government policy. Maybe, there's ramifications, but not immediate. So I think that does encourage kind of a greater sense of apathy. I think there's a third component, which is social media allows people to feel like they're participating while not actually participating. You see what I'm saying? Like,
But don't you think, just one question with your social media, don't you think one of the issues with maybe getting people to participate and get them like fired up is that they've been desensitized because they see so much outrageous stuff that it takes a lot to get somebody fired up to actually go do something now versus back in the day, if you saw something kind of outrageous, you were fired up about it. It was a different time.
Well, I think that's right, and I also think that a lot of what you see on social media is fake now. Well, we talked about AI. I don't want to get into that too much because, like, it's really non sequitur. But
Yeah.
there is a lot of stuff out there that is AI generated, especially on Twitter, but also on the other apps, that is just simply not true. So
it's not even AI too, though. They take and edit it. They've been doing that before the AI. Really,
yeah, I mean, there's Photoshop,
Yeah.
and I mean, people
Yeah.
use Photoshop, right? So I think the challenge is that even when you take some outrageous things, now people are like, I don't even know if it's true or not. So now people are so desensitized. But also I think with social media, people are content to leave a couple comments and feel like they did their part.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's funny because my family members, they all send me stuff because I throw it through the AI fact checker that we use for news stuff, and most of it's not true. Most of it's not true, but it looks true.
Yeah.
It looks true. And I think too, we had a guest on not too long ago, and I hear this all the time, where people always say the world's on fire, and I'm like, can you imagine if we had the same social construct back in the Crusades or the Spanish Inquisitions or the Native American slaughter when we came over here, or the cowboy days or the concentration camp? I mean, can you imagine what social media would look like back then? It would have been on fire. We just have so much knowledge now. We are on overload. And that's why I tell people, when we have family time, we have smartphone free time.
Well, I think there is an information overload, and I would also say, to your point about the neighbors, right? At the end of the day, you may be Democrat, you may be Republican, you may be in the Patriot Party, but your neighbors may have disagreeing views. But at the end of the day, most people kind of generally get along, right? And most people are generally not very political, right? So at the end of the day, I do think the media and social media, even more than traditional media, serves to purposefully divide us. I think social media actually does it like on steroids.
So, absolutely what you're saying about the media and the polarizing. I just want to correct one thing. Nobody's going to be a member of the Patriot Party and not be a member of the political party. You can't, but this is a civic movement to re-empower the people. This has nothing to do with politics, nonpartisan. We're both sides. We're all about we the people. We don't, and what I was going to say to that is, you're saying people aren't that far off. Well, what really gave me an insight of that is I went out to visit my daughter in San Francisco. Her husband's stationed out in the Air Force Base out there, and she's an artist. And so I helped her set up at these art festivals out there with the other artists from there, the locals, and they were very liberal. And I'm from Louisiana, and it's a very red state. And we were talking about, what the Patriot Party's doing, the curriculum and the Constitution, and they were all in agreement. And they were like, I really wish the media would stop splitting us because we really just don't agree on a few issues and we just want to agree to disagree. And I'm like, really? Because that's what I've been screaming, agree to disagree. It is not like it is.
One major thing is both parties, both people on both sides feel that the other one doesn't want to let them live in peace, right? So if you're an artist in San Francisco, maybe you want to have your gender neutral bathrooms, you want to have your kind of all the sort of different, those type of issues. And if you're in Louisiana or the Bible Belt, right, maybe you want to feel like, hey, I do have a little bit more religion in school. I want to feel like my faith is front and center, right? And I do feel that both groups feel that the other one, like, I feel like one of the beautiful things about America, and you're a constitutionalist, so am I, we have the Interstate Commerce Clause. We can move anywhere in the country.
That's what I was getting ready to say, yes.
So I'm a constitutionalist, so the way that I see it is like, hey, if you want to do the sort of gender non-binary thing, you can be in San Francisco, enjoy that to your heart's content. If you want to focus on the Bible and, do that kind of thing, there's the Bible Belt for you, right? There's plenty of other states that might give you something in between. Like, I don't have any problem with people of either group doing their thing. And the beautiful part about the federalist form of government, but the problem is neither the Democrats nor the Republicans, it feels like both parties are trying to actually obstruct the people's ability to go about. Like, so if you're on the left, you know, and like, why shouldn't people in liberal states who want the right to abortion have that right? And why should people in conservative states who don't want abortion, maybe they don't want abortion in their places, right? So have some degree of local control. Now, I get that it is not as simple as merely saying that, right? Because there are some injustices that are so horrible. For example, now, I recognize this argument was used by the southern states to justify Jim Crow, right? Like, oh, let us do what we want to do. And that's unacceptable, right? Like, we can't allow segregation in any part of this country, right?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I just want to stop you right there for a second. If we took the Constitution at what it said, at every man is created equal. Every man is created, and I know people push back and say, well, it's got the 3/5. Well, actually, if you research it, that was put in there to give less power to the slave states so that northern states could have more power and they could get slavery gone. They just couldn't do away with it all at once. So take that out. That's the first document in history that says every man is created equal. So if everyone is afforded their constitutional rights and they're all created equal, then if a policy does not discriminate against a certain person,
correct, as long as it's not unconstitutional. And the problem is that the Supreme Court and various other courts have gotten, both on the left and the right, have gotten too political, where, like, my feeling is, like, yes, so there are core rights that cannot be violated. For example, like, if a state wants to have segregation, they should not obviously be allowed to do that.
No, that goes against the Constitution. You
but
can't violate
on the other hand, I think certain things like gender non-binary facilities versus church, a little bit of more prayer in school, I think there's an argument to say, let's allow maybe the more conservative places to put a little bit more Jesus in the classroom, and maybe allow the more liberal places to maybe have, you know, more on the other side.
I understand you were speaking my language, and this is the first time that I'm actually going to get to talk about this. Because this is actually, no, you don't even know what I'm getting ready to talk about. It's actually our flagship legislation. It's the whole reason I invented the software, because I didn't know anything about legislation, but I knew because of everything. Like, if you look at a lot of the roots of the problems, if you looked at, and all you had to do was watch the news at the end of the year, we said overly ambiguous laws breed bureaucratic overreach and judicial activism. You got the executive branch overreaching, and you got the judges making laws, and they're not even supposed to make laws. So, but the problem is that they put these laws on the books that aren't constitutional in the beginning. They're vague. They're intentionally vague, so it gives the other branches. So they're unconstitutional. Well, our flagship legislation was, and then that's where we started seeing, well, the country needs this. It's actually a cool story the way it folds out, but is for a constitutional quality control board. And all laws would go through that, and then their findings. Now, obviously, they can't dictate anything unless there's an amendment. But the legislative branch can say they can dictate how things have to run, and then all those findings would be published, made transparent and used as an education tool. But it would put a pinpoint on these laws that are going on the books, and they wouldn't be able to go on the books, very easily and be unconstitutional at the beginning, which would do away with a lot of what you're saying. And then it does make perfect sense. I mean, that's why. I mean, it's the same with the human body. I mean, that's what I studied and what I did for a long time. Everything's not for everybody. One muscle may develop better on one person than it does on the others. And the states are kind of acting like the different muscles. Whatever sits best with you as a person.
I agree with that.
Cool. So let's see. We're going through a lot of this stuff. All right, let's see. So, you had said this kind of goes into a little bit more in depth of what we had talked about earlier, where you were talking about how you were trying to link people better, and what had kind of got out in the media to begin with about people not really knowing what they were protesting about.
Well, and just to be clear, we never purposefully did that. But
no, I understand.
But I
But
think that it is a broader problem. I mean, here's I guess another, like, maybe a contrarian point. So
okay.
I always see this where at the other side's rally. So if you're at MAGA rallies, left-wing journalists go there. They try to find the stupidest person there, get him to say something stupid, and then they broadcast it to their followers as if everybody is that stupid. Right, and maybe this person just uninformed, and vice versa. You got the MAGA people who go to liberal rallies, no kings or whatever, find someone who's not informed and then broadcast it. So I guess I have 2 points. Number one, a lot of what you see when you see these videos of people at protests not informed are selective choice, right? Because they interviewed 10 people and they found the dumbest person, number one. Maybe I shouldn't say dumb, but the least informed person. I guess my second point in regards to that is, why should you have to be well informed to attend a rally? You may know something, you may have an opinion that you may not be ready to come on a show like this or cable news or whatever and defend your position, but you may nonetheless have an opinion, right? So if somebody is against abortion, right? Is it not okay for them to just say, I'm against abortion? I don't have all of the arguments. I just feel that I oppose it, right? And I'm going to protest because I oppose it, right? And I just, because I think it's wrong, and that's it. And I don't have any more opinions than that, right? Like, or vice versa, right? If someone's pro-choice, like, why should anyone who is going to a protest necessarily have to know all the facts as if they're going to go on a cable news segment to talk about it, right? Why should they all have to have a glib answer and sound like Gavin Newsom, Like,
Oh, absolutely.
I don't get it.
I'm sure that where this came from. It's not somebody not being able to defend the point. I mean, I saw the videos. I remember on social media. It was a couple years ago, whenever it was, and they were asking the people what they were holding a sign. Well, what are you protesting? And the people couldn't tell them what they're protesting. But my whole point on the media is literally that could have been 2 or 3 out of the whole America.
Well, that's my other thing.
And that's it.
It's obviously selective on both sides. I mean, Jordan Klepper is a Daily Show reporter, obviously a liberal, right? And he always goes to MAGA rallies and does the same thing. So I'm not singling out either side for this. I'm actually calling out both sides for this.
Absolutely. I mean, that's pretty much what we're trying to do. We're not trying to take sides. We're just trying to present the facts and let people, make their own opinion. We're not trying to tell them what to think. So, what do you think? Walk us through how small incidents become large incidents. Why emotions escalate, things of that sort. What mistakes both protesters and authorities commonly make.
Well, this is a very good question. So, at the end of the day, it's the same principles as geopolitics, right? Look at the U.S. and Iran. One person does something, another person retaliates bigger, and before you know it, you have a big problem on your hands. So it's the same thing. Pardon me, I'm just about to sneeze.
It's okay.
Pardon me. Sorry. Forgive these spring allergies here, Matt. So here's the deal with that. When you have certain incidents, right, you need cooler heads to prevail. There's a reason that there's a red phone between the White House in Washington, D.C. and the Kremlin in Moscow, right? Why do we have that there? It's because in the event of some tension between the U.S. and Russia, recognizing the U.S. and Russia have a ton of nukes, and both of the United States and Russia can destroy the world over like 50 times over, right, is that type of incident would be unacceptable to both of our countries. So therefore,
it's mutual self-destruction. I mean, that's
we need
mutually assured self-destruction.
That's correct. So what we need in the context of protests is that same red phone between someone on the authority end and someone on the protest end. Because the larger the protest, the more likely it is. Now, first of all, I always advise people to have complete coordination with authorities in advance. Because as a constitutionalist, I know one of the obligations of the authorities is actually not just to allow free expression and protest, but it's actually to facilitate it. So, like, what people don't understand is a lot of people who like to protest come in seeing police as the enemy, saying police aren't wanting to protest. Like, no, actually, the police not only have an obligation to allow the protest, but they actually have an obligation to protect and facilitate the right of protest, right? So, in a vast majority of cases, my discussions with police are very positive, right? Most police, they believe in the Constitution, like, as much as you and me and I do, right? So like, to me, the Constitution is almost a holy document, and I can tell it's the same thing for you. But I think a lot of people who are in national service, such as police, actually really believe in that. So they're like, the good officers are always coming in and saying, look, we're here to facilitate your right to protest. Now, that's not to say there isn't a bit of a back and forth and that knowing your rights isn't important, right? So sometimes the police will say, hey, can you move a couple blocks that way? Let's just say we're protesting outside a convention center. And I may be, or my team may tell the police, I'm sorry, we actually have the right to be right here, so we can't really accommodate that, right? So just because they ask me to do something, and sometimes that might involve escalating to a higher ranking officer, right? But again, it's all within a spirit of collaboration, right?
Yes.
At the same time, what happens is, let's just say you have a large protest. This doesn't normally happen in a small protest, but a large protest. Okay, there's some problem. Protester spits on the officer, right? Well, that's really unacceptable, and that is illegal, and that should be taken care of. But the right example, what if a protester spits on the police officer, and then the police officer throws tear gas at the protesters? Then the protesters may then escalate, and then the police may then escalate. So the key is for both sides to identify bad actors. So, or if the police are rude or disrespectful, that officer needs to be withdrawn, right? So the key thing is to have that communication between someone who is on the protest side and someone on the police side, so that if there are people who are not upholding those values, you can take that seriously. One of the things that we do, we have a 20-minute call with everybody who participates in any Crowds on Demand event, and not only to verify that they're passionate about the cause, but also to make sure that they're passionate about the idea of lawful, peaceful activism. So we kind of say, look, we are there to exercise our First Amendment rights, and we're so lucky to be in a country where the First Amendment gives us very wide latitude, right? Very wide latitude.
Man, something that happened cool the other day. I was having to put in with the National Park Services in Washington, D.C. for a permit coming up in October, where we're doing the hard launch for our federal policy producer. Walk up with an idea, leave with a Washington formatted policy. We're doing it in Washington. And it's a $120 fee. But under the First Amendment, it's free, since our event's a First Amendment event. I'm like, man, that's cool that we live in a country where the fee is waived and it's free, and we can do it. Yes, you're absolutely right. We are blessed to live in this country.
Yeah, it's true. I completely agree.
So what you're saying pretty much is level heads will prevail, and I almost think that, obviously there needs to be two people that can talk to one another and have a dialogue, one from or at least two people, maybe a group, one from the protest, one from the police. But also, in the spirit of this movement, we're trying to make everything transparent. I almost think every conversation that's had with the police, somebody needs to be wearing a camera on them, and it's going to the cloud.
It's supposed to be that way, and I support the body camera.
Yes.
And what's funny is the good cops support it too, because
I'm saying whoever's talking to the cops should have a body cam, so they have copy of
I
the
like that
conversation
too.
that was had.
I like that too, and the good cops I know actually really like the body cam because it actually protects them against frivolous litigation.
Absolutely, and then you could even take it one step further, and it could be posting live the conversation with the cops on the movement protest. So if the cops aren't going to step out of line if they know they're being posted to 1 million people viewing them right now, and the protesters, if they step out of line, hey, we know why. We have full context why the cops did what they did.
Yep, I agree.
Absolutely.
I
think that's
don't.
one.
I mean, I think there are privacy issues of having it all live. I will say, there are privacy issues.
With who? The cop? If the cop does anything, I don't know. Yeah, you'd have to check with your legal, obviously, before you do something. But you may be able to incorporate a part of it anyway. Maybe the conversations themselves are recorded or something. Whatever legal says. So you proposed the Transparency in Political Demonstrations Act. For someone hearing that title, explain what it is and explain what it isn't.
Well, I think people are very interested in understanding how protests are done. This whole term astroturf is kind of invented by both sides to refer to movements that they don't like, when the reality is there's wealthy individuals and a lot of companies on both sides that are participating. And I'm thinking that this act, it's called the Transparency in Political Demonstrations Act, will basically give people the transparency that they are looking for on large demonstrations. So that's more than 500 participants. They have to reveal all the funders, right, from top to bottom, as well as the vendors, right? And what I think that's going to show is that both sides, Republican, Democrat, whatever, have a ton of money. They have billionaires on both sides who are funding these movements. Now, I don't think that that'll actually surprise anybody. I think it actually...
Let me ask you something would it hurt your business if you led by example? If you had a page for your protest that showed...
I will do that. This is my point. I want to do that. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, it's perfect.
Well,
That's the only way to lead by example. Because
what I'm saying is when this is passed, what I'm saying is that I want to share it along with everybody else. That's what I'm saying. Is that what we're going to be doing is, of course, so people always ask me, Adam, why are you the one who's in favor of this? Wouldn't you not want to reveal? And I'm saying, if everyone's revealing, it's like we're all in the locker room with our underwear on. Like, that's great.
Absolutely. Well, we say light is the best disinfectant. I mean, and if light is, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to shine light on
So I think if we all, it's basically, we're like, so this is my point, is that I think that it might unpack some of the opacity around it. So I support it, and we're going to comply with it, of course, once it's passed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, one thing we spend a lot of time discussing is how do we teach future generations how to think without telling them what to think. Should schools teach media literacy, civil discourse, information analysis, do you think?
Well, of course they should teach that. I learned it in school under the idea of primary sources versus secondary sources. You are supposed to learn this in civics and in history class, where they teach you, here is a primary source, right? That is basically like the actual evidence. Here is a secondary source, which is someone's analysis on what happened, right? Or a tertiary source, right? So, for example, understanding that when you see like some article about a YouTube clip that went viral, this lady said something racist on, this is a racist Karen. Well, that is a secondary source. The primary source is the actual video. Watch the video and you decide if she's a racist Karen or not, right? Do you see what I'm saying? And versus reading an article on NBC News saying, here's what this racist Karen did, and that is a secondary source, and what are NBC News's biases? What are Fox News's biases, right? So that we can unpack that. So I 100% think you need to teach kids that, and you need to, of course, do it in a non-ideological way, but to understand that the problem is, people are very good at understanding the biases on the other side. Like I'm really lucky. I have friends on both the conservative and liberal side, right? And my conservative friends are great in saying, oh, well, I don't believe that. It's from the New York Times. But they don't think twice about what Newsmax or Fox News says. and vice versa. I have liberal friends who are like, oh, I don't believe that. It's from the New York Post. That's conservative. But they don't think twice about what they see in the New York Times. So I think that it has to be nonpartisan, because I think a lot of people see bias on the other side, but they don't see it on their side.
Absolutely, you know, and that's one of the things, I mean, that's beautiful that's going on with the American Institute for Civic Leadership. It started being piloted at the end of last year for a whole 6th grade class. We haven't even taken $1 in donations yet, but we're teaching media literacy. We're teaching civil discourse. So in middle school, they get given historical topics. In high school, once they've been trained in debate, they get given hot topics like, well, the Supreme Court, like abortion and things that may be in the news right now. And so one side gets giving the living document, the other side gets giving the originalist. They debate respectfully, no cursing, no raising voices. The teacher is the facilitator, the coach, and they learn what resonates at a young age with them. Do they like the living? Do they like the originalist? Are they like me and they like a hybrid of the two? You know, and they learn media literacy from being, but because, you know, what got me to develop this curriculum was, what got this movement started was it used to be a podcast. Before that, it was a live stream, a huge live stream, and we lost it during the censorship era. And then it turned into a podcast based on truth and constitution. And one week we reported on, there was 2 studies. More than 3 in 10 Americans believed it was going to take violence to get back on track politically. And less than 2 in 5 Americans, less than 20%, knew the 3 branches of government. So I tested it, and I tested it on people with advanced degrees, doctors, you know, masters.
Yeah, those people
too.
are actually some of the worst, actually. So this is what I was saying. It has nothing to, I mean, it might have something to do with education, but I know a lot of very well-educated people who have no understanding of this issue.
But that's because it's not in the system, because it was, you know, it's been...
Or here's the other
it's
thing.
just never been put in the system.
Educated, high IQ people can talk themselves into even the craziest things. That's why they're more likely to be schizophrenic. Is actually really, really intelligent people can concoct the craziest ideas because their mind is actually so smart that they can actually convince themselves of even crazier things. So
not saying these were good people, but they were smart for what they did. Napoleon, Hitler, and a lot of writers, Edgar Allan Poe, they suffered with those mental things, you know, but it allowed them to function at a higher level, but they talked themselves into some crazy stuff. So I absolutely understand what you're saying, and that's why, you know, we're trying to step back, and we say that true change, it starts at the bottom and it starts at the top and it meets in the middle. Generational change. It's got to start at both and meet in the middle. So what skills do you believe young people need that previous generations may not have needed?
Well, that in particular. Also, the ability to understand technology, use it, and not be used by it, as we talked about earlier, is a very critical skill.
Well, you know, and I tell a lot of people, and I hope you agree, you know, a lot of people, they hear AI, they say, oh, and I said, look, AI is here to stay. Trillions of dollars are being dumped into this all over the world. They're talking about floating space stations for data centers. It's here to stay. So we got 2 choices. We can let the gatekeepers, the elites, they can decide everything for us. Or since it's leveled the playing field and made it where everybody's equal and people can do things they never could have done before, we can use it responsibly, and we can have a say in how it's used, and use that same power to rain power in. Use power to rain power in, and we'll do it. Just shine a light on it so people can make a more informed decision.
Yeah. There you go. I agree.
So, what gives you optimism?
What gives me optimism is, well, I mean, I was a really optimistic person. I think America, first of all, from our country, is like, have you ever been on one of those Polaris vehicles, you know, like the off-road? Like
the Gators.
Yeah. Our country is kind of like a Polaris vehicle. Like, I remember going on one, and I was like, Jesus Christ, we're going to flip over, like, going over this rock, or, like, we're literally going over, like, a freaking branches and all that. And it's just, like, it's riding along. America's kind of like that. We have this. Now, that doesn't mean we should be complacent. We shouldn't. But America has survived for almost 250 years now, right, this July, on the basis of a very sound system. Now, so that gives me a lot of confidence in in our ability to weather things. Now, the other thing is, I actually feel like the young generation is quite smart. Like, I mean, I guess I'm relatively young as 35-year-old, but I mean the Gen Zs or the high school kids that when I've spoken to kids, or certainly people in their 20s, seem very smart, and they seem aware of technology and almost more aware of the pitfalls than parents. I've actually seen a lot more boomers get really addicted and not understand how to limit their phones and computers than the Gen Zs. I mean, I'm not saying that Gen Zs don't struggle with it, but I do think that the young generation does seem to understand that this is not an entirely good thing. So I think there's a lot that gives me hope right now. So I think our country will be fine, but I think that people have to really pay attention and understand when they're being like what's true and what's not. And what you're doing is so important for that, because the biggest challenge right now is that we need to have an objective truth. And when I was growing up, there was such a thing as a fact, and it does feel like more and more that is going away. And it's like, oh well, that is my truth, or that the left says this is my truth, or the right says, what is it, alternative facts or whatever. And I think we need to move toward like a real sense of this is the actual truth, right? So it's like, if we're talking, but I've talked about what makes me happy. What is concerning is if we don't have that, how do we talk about it? So if one side says there's no illegal immigrants coming into this country, and another person says there is 10 million illegals are coming every single day, well, how are we supposed to decide how to address illegal if
there's no common ground? You can't discuss something.
Well,
if you
because
don't
if there's 10
some.
million people, if there's 0 people coming in a day, well,
You're
then it's
living
not
in a
a
different
problem.
reality.
Right.
Yeah,
So if we say there's 0 people coming in, then it's like, okay, well, it's not a problem. We don't have to do anything. And if we say there's 10 million, well, this is like a clear and present danger. We need to send the military in, right?
Yeah.
So if we can't agree on the fact, I mean, I remember doing, and I think like, I love what you do. I mean, I remember engaging in debate, and like I used to live in Ireland as a kid, and also in doing it in high school in the U.S. As one of the things that you had to decide before the actual substance of the debate is some of the core assumptions. And if you can't agree on the basic assumptions, which is the facts, then it's very hard. Like, imagine if in December 8th, 1941, one side says, well, the Japanese just attacked Pearl Harbor, what are we going to do? And the other group says, no, they didn't attack Pearl Harbor. Well, it's like, okay, if they didn't attack Pearl Harbor, then what are we going to do versus if they did, right? So if somebody is out there saying, no, the Japanese didn't attack Pearl Harbor, well, it's like, how do I debate how to respond?
If you're saying it didn't happen. Yeah.
So I think that is so the biggest threat is this idea of coming to, because I actually think if Republicans and Democrats were armed with the same facts, we would largely come to a lot of the same conclusions, right? And maybe there'd be a debate, okay, do we tax the rich more? Do we tax corporations more or less? Okay, like certain things, okay, abortion, yes or no, right? But in terms of a lot of the core issues, I think we'd be more on the same page. But
yeah, I mean, if everything was based on, and that's what we're trying to do with the movement, we're using AI to tell us the facts, to outline what can be backed up, what are facts, and then like for government, then the lawmakers, they're armed with the facts. You decide what works best for you and your constituents. Now you have all the facts. Now you know what has worked. Now you know everything. But it's hard to figure out something if you don't know everything, and it's almost impossible, if not impossible. And it's what you're saying, to come to a compromise if you can't agree on the facts you're compromising on. How do you compromise on it?
That's the challenge. So I think that if we can't agree on the facts, it's really a challenge. So I think first of all, so we can unpack facts, And one thing that when I've talked to people who are more conspiracy theorists or whatever, and by the way, a lot of those conspiracies have been proven right, so it's a harder debate to have these days. Well, but the one of the things that we first have to understand is what are the facts, right? And let's first figure out the facts. Once we figure out the facts, then we can figure out the analysis.
Absolutely. And my next question was going to be, what did you, if millions of Americans remembered only one thing from this conversation, what would it be? But I believe the biggest thing would be facts, right?
Yeah, exactly. And look, I think that this time requires people of unconventional skill sets, like myself, like yourself, right? People like myself who maybe even have some controversy attached to them are needed. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say I'm needed because that sounds egotistical, but I feel like I could be of use.
Your ideas are needed. Your ideas are needed. Not you, your ideas.
Traditional ways of doing things have obviously failed in a lot of ways, and you need outside the box thinkers and operators, and I want to be a part of that. And I like that you're wanting to be a part of that. And I think we need more people who are a little unconventional to say, let's do something to make our country a better place.
Man, I love it. We put out a graphic. We say America first, not America only, because we lead by example. And we have to lead by example. I mean, I think if you look at, when the whole world started kind of going, not every part of the world, but a lot of the world, a lot of it is because they look to us and we're going crazy. They
look to us and they're laughing at us right now, and both, and they're not laughing at us because of the right or left. They're laughing at us because we can't seem to agree on anything. You know what I mean? And even the adversarial governments are laughing at us because we can't even agree on basic facts, and they're trying to even exacerbate that problem. And we as Americans really need to come together because. Like, when I talk to people, I have great friends who are of all political stripes. It's really only on the internet that we hate each other. So let's get back to talking in person because I think we're going to do a lot better.
Yeah, and I think the adversaries are laughing at us. I think the people that look to us are falling apart with us. I mean, look at Europe and the things that are happening over there. France,
all of our friends are experiencing a lot of the same problems that we face, and
yes.
But we as America need to be ahead of this, and let's do it together. So let's get at it, my friend.
Absolutely. Is there anything before I close out that you want to say to the American people that we may not have gotten to?
Do your research, and if you feel that we can work together, crowdsondemand.com. Feel free to visit us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll put make sure you send me a link, and I'll put it in the description for people to link to your Crowds on Demand. So to go on all the trips and all the platforms.
Crowdsondemand.com.
That's it? Crowdsondemand.com?
www.crowdsondemand.com.
Crowds with an S, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Demand.com. All right, I'll put that in the description of this episode. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up, and then if you just hang around the studio for a minute, we can chop it up afterwards, after I finish wrapping this up. Are you good?
You got it.
All right. Adam, thank you again for joining us and for sharing your perspective and experiences.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. To everyone watching, regardless of where you stand politically, continue asking questions, thinking critically, continue seeking facts, and continue having constructive conversations. Remember, truth isn't partisan, it's patriotic.